You are listening to the Top Leaders Club podcast. My name is Monika Ciesielska, and I invite you on the journey with the leaders of the global labor market, sharing their leadership experience, talking about professional successes and failures that shape them on the way to the top. Stay with us and make yourself inspired. Hello everyone, welcome to the Top Leaders Club podcast. My guest today is Ken Potrock, the president of Disney Resort, located in Anaheim, California. Hi Ken, great to have you on my podcast.
Hello.
Ken's career at Disney has started 20 years ago, and what we'll discuss today will be his career path, which was quite challenging and I would even say extraordinary. We'll talk about his road to success, about the difficulties, about the struggles. We'll also learn about Ken's style of management and the type of leadership which was developed over the years. But I would like to start with the Disney Resort because we are recording this interview a few days before launching the largest global event in the history of Disney. And this is 100th anniversary of the Walt Disney Company. And this event is going to be celebrated in Disneyland. So could you tell a few words about this event?
Well, the company was founded 100 years ago, which is extraordinary because many companies don't last 100 years.
That's true.
To begin with, especially in the entertainment industry. One of the things that we talked about from a company perspective was celebrating this milestone across all of the divisions of the company. Mm-hmm. And all of the divisions are participating in one way or another. But one of the things that we at Disneyland decided to do was to focus the entire celebration, for an entire year right here in Anaheim, and to be, humbly the center of the celebration for the entire company, which makes sense because we were the theme park that started it all. So we thought we had a really good place in history.
Yeah. How is it to work in the most magical and happiest place on earth?
Well, it's been a pretty great journey. I don't think I would have stayed for 28 years if it wasn't a magical place. But we use words like magical, and it sometimes camouflages the fact that it's also hard work.
Yeah.
Being focused on quality, being focused on guest service, being focused on our cast members, which is what we call our employees. So that they can help deliver, what we call the magic to the guest. Those come with challenges, and then think about societal challenges and economic challenges, and lots of challenges that we're faced with. So it's never as clean as you want it to be, but those challenges make us stronger.
But this crew, this team which you mentioned, is quite big. We are talking about 34,000 of employees. To give everyone a better understanding of the size, in my hometown, we have same amount of inhabitants. So you are leading a team sizing the whole city. So how would you describe the company culture, and what pillars and values the organizational culture stands on?
Well, I think the number one, I wake up every morning shocked that I lead a workforce of 34,000 people, and it's even in many ways bigger than that, because Disneyland is part of the Anaheim community, and we're surrounded by hoteliers and restaurants and other businesses that cater to the tourism sector. So when you think about the number of people that are affected by the economic engine that is Disneyland, it's 70 or 80,000 people. So wow. I wake up, going, wow, this is a lot of responsibility, but I don't think too much about that, because if you do, you start to get a little bit intimidated.
Yeah.
I think what I focus on from a management perspective is, first and foremost, the guest, and creating, an incredible experience for our guest. And I do that, every day, all day, as we think about new rides, new attractions, new experiences, the service that we provide, everything from, a great new, Spider-Man attraction all the way down to, a lemon chiffon cake and everything in between. So no detail is too big or too small when it comes to taking care of the guest. I think that's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, Monica, and I don't ever, want to make it sound like it is even number two,
Mm-hmm.
but our business works because of the cast members, because of the employees and how they take care of our guests. And we see it in our research, we see it in comments and verbatims that people love what we do, but number one, they love the cast members that help them create, the happiness that they want to create when they come here.
Mm-hmm.
So the second, area of focus for me is always on the cast.
Mm-hmm.
How do we keep them motivated, inspired? How do we make sure that they love coming to work
Mm-hmm.
and that they love delivering, again, a magical experience to their guests?
Mm-hmm.
So that's number two. Number three is, oh yeah, by the way, we're a public company,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to make money, doing this. And so, making sure that we're pricing correctly, that we understand supply and demand, that we manage the business in such a way that we can optimize our capacity, we can optimize the experience, we can optimize the revenue, all of those things become part of it. And that's really the challenge, because we call it a three-legged stool.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to balance those three things. You have to be able to balance the guest, the cast, and Wall Street. And that becomes the ever-present challenge. That's the thing we balance every single day.
But you're also managing a multi-generational team. The longest careers at Disney Resort have lasted even 50 years. This is really amazing. And there must be 5 or even 6 generations involved in your team. So do you find such a multi-generational team difficult to lead? I believe it is a challenge.
Yeah, I actually don't find it a challenge to lead. I actually find it a benefit to be able to lead. And I'll give you some examples. So we just had our service awards, which is when we honor people with 20, 25, 30, 40, 50. And one person actually had 60 years of continuous employment with the company. And one of the things that you learn is that the younger people are looking up to the more experienced people in the company. And when you talk to, we have a cast member, his name is Hank. He's been in security, for 60 years. When you talk to someone like that, it becomes incredibly inspiring. And they can talk about what they've seen, what they've done, and why it's important with unbelievable authenticity and honesty. And again, that's why I think it's easier, because we have the more experienced many times, leading the younger generation and helping infuse in them sort of the traditions and really the heart of what Disney's all about.
I will bring one more example to the table. I've read an amazing story about Fran Melendez, who joined Disney Resort 7 years ago, and today at age 78, she's in the company. And what is also, I think, interesting is that she was, thanks to Disney Aspire, exactly, thanks to this program which you have which you are providing, she received her diploma from the college that she dropped a few decades ago, and she successfully earned her BA. So this is really impressive. And I thought that maybe you could tell a few words about Disney Aspire, because from my knowledge, this is a program which is supporting the employees of the company to graduate from different schools and universities. And Disney is covering 100% tuition. And what I find also wow is that they can choose the field of education.
Well, you're Monica, you're very familiar with how competitive it is in the marketplace for employees.
Yes.
And one of the things that we were very focused on was we need to have what we call the Disney difference.
Mm-hmm.
How do we make working here a place that people want to work, and importantly, a place that they want to stay?
Yeah.
As evidenced by decades of experience, et cetera, that we talked about earlier. So we work very hard on trying to create a portfolio of benefits for our cast members. And it's compensation is obviously an important part of that, but there's other people can match your salary, offer. Then how do you make it different? And so we think about both the fun side and the development side as we talk about it. So I'll give you an example. You mentioned the 100th anniversary coming up.
Yes.
This week, it actually launches in just a few days. And this week, we have our cast members coming out before we launch to experience all of the new products.
Wow.
And giving them first peek at that. And it is such a fun experience because they appreciate the product more than anybody else. And they're able to bring a friend or family member with them. And that's a great example of only Disney has the ability to do those kinds of things. That's one example.
Yeah.
Another example is, what do we do from making sure that the cast members know that we care about them? And again, there was a tragedy that just occurred here in Los Angeles this weekend. And one of the things that we have the ability to initiate right away is what we call our care centers. And we have facilities in both of our parks and people that are trained in supporting our cast members during crisis, during family disruptions, during just the challenges of their lives, so that they know that someone cares and that they can get navigated to the resources that they need. And then last but not least is how do we think about it from a development perspective? And there's a lot of, training and things of that nature. But one of the things that we decided, years ago was that another Disney difference would be for people to be able to continuing their educational careers. And it could be in professional colleges, or it could be in the trades, could be in a number of different ways. But the idea was they're not in their position forever, and that they have the ability to grow in their career as long as they're prepared to invest in that. And that investment is their time.
Yeah.
And that investment is their passion. So we created Aspire, which provides them with free college for any full-time cast member. And again, you mentioned it, Monica. I think what makes it really special is study whatever you want. So you could be a housekeeper. You're not going to go take a course in housekeeping.
Yeah.
You can go take a course in economics or in accounting or in finance or marketing or any number of, and potentially develop a career. And because we're such a big company with so much flow of people between jobs and opportunities, there are many opportunities for that same housekeeper to potentially shift into, a different kind of role. The woman that you're talking about, 78 years old, actually works in our merchandise department, and she's bettering herself so that she can move into a management role. I mean,
nice.
How fantastic is that? So we're very proud of the Aspire program, and it is something that sets us apart from many other companies, especially many other companies in our industry.
It's really inspiring, and I hope that many employers will hear our conversation. Continuing the educational part, I also found out that you are doing quite a lot to provide not only the jobs at Disney Resort to the local community at Southern California, but also education. And I'm talking about supporting high school students to succeed in their future careers. More than 5,000 local students have successfully completed another program, which is called Anaheim Family YMCA's Avanza program. And it's 5,000 students since 2019. So it's a huge amount of young people. One of the things that we take very seriously is our responsibility to the community. Mm-hmm.
You can't just be a business and sit in the middle of the community and not be engaged. And there's both good for the community and good for Disney, associated with this. The good for community part is, how do we create opportunities for high school students
Mm-hmm.
to recognize all the different things that are out there for them.
Mm-hmm.
When I was growing up, my family owned a restaurant. I didn't really know about all the possible careers
Mm-hmm.
that were, available to me. And I was lucky because I had an older sister that was a few years ahead of me, and she could navigate me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So many young people today looking for that navigation, but they just don't have access to somebody that can help guide them.
Yes.
So when we create development programs,
Mm-hmm.
For high school students, it is for that in mind, for them to understand their potential and the exciting opportunities that are there for them. They just have to know where to go
Mm-hmm.
and how to get themselves ready for that. So this Avanza program is really all about that, and we work with a number of different companies within the organizations within the community
Mm-hmm.
to drive people to that
Mm-hmm.
program, so that they can again, have a leg up
Mm-hmm.
to move forward with their careers, and not just think that their careers are set at one
Yeah.
somewhat lower level. I think the other thing, by the way, let's not talk about the fact that this is great, for the Anaheim community. It's also great for Disney,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a fantastic way for us to introduce ourselves
Mm-hmm.
to young people that make up a large part of our workforce.
Mm-hmm.
Many of them are the introductory level,
Mm-hmm.
coming into our workforce, and we need that. We need that pipeline,
Mm-hmm.
of new cast members, and again, cast members that we hope, will take a job for more than a year or two,
Mm-hmm.
and that ultimately will look to make a career here.
Mm-hmm.
And along the way, they could go back to school, they could take a break and then come back, they could move across a variety of different, business units. It's a really wonderful way to think about making a career. And Monica, you know this as well as I do. Younger people today don't stay at a same company for 10 years, 20 years.
No, they don't.
It just doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
They hop with great frequency, and we're okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
And what we find is that if they get a good experience, one, they'll spread the word and other people will be interested in learning more about Disney. Two, they may come back. And three, for sure, they're coming back with their families as customers and guests.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
there's benefits all around.
That's true. Let's talk about your professional career. You're, as I mentioned at the beginning, you are 28 years with Disney. You started at Cruise Line, which is one of the Disney's firms. Then you spent 23 years at Disney Parks Experiences and Products. And finally, you became the president at Disney Resort, and it happened in May 2020. Was it like a conscious and thoughtful decision to tighten the knots with this particular company, or was it more like a coincidence?
Well, I would tell you the only thoughtful part of it was that I wanted to work at Disney.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very clear. I was in the advertising business before that, and I had worked with a variety of different kinds of clients, including Disney.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a sense that the creativity of the Disney company, the willingness to take risks of the company, the excitement that was always surrounding based on new products and services seemed really interesting to me. So I was very conscious about trying to get a job at Disney.
Mm-hmm.
There was an opportunity to come in as the vice president of marketing for a new business that we were launching, which was Disney Cruise Line.
Mm-hmm.
We had never been in the cruise industry before. We thought it was a good extension of our brand. And I came in to help with both the marketing and with the product development, of that exciting product.
Mm-hmm.
And that led to, wow, if you do one thing well, it leads potentially to another thing. And so that wasn't a conscious decision.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was going to be a marketing person for my entire career.
Okay.
Uh, and so I worked through a number of different business units within the company in marketing. And then at a point in time, there wasn't anywhere further for me to go
Mm-hmm.
within the company. I couldn't get to a higher level in marketing. And I had a mentor. In fact, I had a couple of mentors that said to me, in this company,
Mm-hmm.
you need to begin trying to run businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave me a small little business to run, which was broken.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, Disney Cruise Line, when I got there, was also broken
Okay.
because the ship was delayed a year.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had all these people that had signed up, and then we had to, call them and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's not coming for another year."
Okay.
So that was broken,
Mm-hmm.
and broken became the common thread in my career,
Mm-hmm.
which was I found out that I was pretty good at going into disrupted and crisis-oriented
Mm-hmm.
situations and course correcting those situations to
Mm-hmm.
take broken and transition it into successful.
Mm-hmm.
So that became the common thread within my career. And I kept moving from business unit to business unit to business unit. Each of them, though, were broken.
Mm-hmm.
And and I became very much Mr. Fix It,
Mm-hmm.
in each of those kinds of opportunities. And even today, when I got to Disneyland, which was about 2.5 years ago, when I got to Disneyland had just closed for the pandemic
Mm-hmm.
and been closed for 2 months. And I walked in thinking that, okay, well, we're going to reopen, but it had been disrupted, and I understand that, but we thought it was going to reopen in a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
And 14 months later, the business finally reopened.
Wow.
And so it was as broken as anything I'd ever worked
Yeah.
on. But that also creates an extraordinary opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
which is, well, then let's consider different ways of doing things. Let's think about a new vision. Let's think
Mm-hmm.
about a new approach, a new business model. How would we appeal to our consumer base, differently, now that we have some time to think about the fact that we don't have to do the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I've liked about my career. Not this, it was very planful, and I knew I was going from, Disney Cruise Line to the parks to, to Disneyland. It was more about chasing the challenges that I saw within the company that my skill sets,
Mm-hmm.
could help me fix.
Yeah.
And that's really been the story of my career.
It was also like chasing a knowledge and experience, which brought you to the role of the president, and then you were able, to start this difficult role in this difficult time, right? Because you started, as you mentioned, in at the beginning of pandemic. So it's hard to say that your career was vertical. It was more like a zigzag career, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So like you were like gaining knowledge. You were improving your skills, and here you are at Disney Resort as its president. But I wonder, how did you feel when you started your new role? I mean, the beginning of pandemic, and the crew probably was reduced significantly. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, so I started, and the first thing that we were doing was either putting on furlough or laying off
Yeah.
the large majority of our workforce. So we had, at that time, 34,000 employees. We kept 2,000 of them to just keep the lights on and do some work on the property, but 33,000 of them went home. And nothing was more important to me from a strategy perspective, vision perspective, and quite honestly, from a personal perspective, was to do everything I could to get these people back to work.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about we needed to get them back to work to make money. It was we needed to get them back to work because their lives were at risk.
Yes.
How do they pay rent? How do they make sure there's food on the table? How do they make sure they send their children to university? It takes money to do those things, and they needed the employment. And so that became a very clear mission for myself and the team, which was do everything in our power to, one, take care of these people while they weren't working, but two, get them back to work as quickly as we possibly could. So, I think that's part of it. I think the other part of it is, so I have two sons, two adult sons, and I talk to them a lot about creating and managing their own personal brand. And the personal brand, for me, was built upon all of those different jobs and experiences that I had. Taught me different things. Sometimes it was marketing, sometimes it was sales, sometimes it was finance, sometimes it was operations, sometimes it was creativity and creative content development. But along the journey, I got experienced in all of those areas, and that was building my brand. And so when I got to Disneyland, as intimidating as it was, that we were closed and all of these people were home, I felt very confident that I had the skill sets to be able to, and the experience to be able to manage through this real gigantic disruption. And so it wasn't intimidating. What was, my focus was recognizing that it was a unique opportunity to reinvent the business. And then that leads to, especially in a business that's 68 years old, Disneyland specifically, you don't reinvent it. It's a tradition-laden business. And people were very hesitant, for change. And in fact, I had always heard stories about, if you were going to move a bench, there were guests that would handcuff themselves to the bench because Walt had put that bench there and they didn't want change.
Yeah.
So you have to be very cognizant of change and its impact on your customers and your cast members. And so you make change for good reasons, and you explain the change from the perspective of what are the benefits to the consumer or to our cast members. And we worked really hard to do that. Yeah. And we changed so many things here from a business model perspective. Not the core of it, not the great magical experience, not treat, our guest and cast well, but to think about the business in a different way so that people could enjoy it maybe even more based upon our popularity. And, you get some people that hate that, and you get others that love that. And you have most that are in the middle getting used to it, and that's the journey that we've been on.
How was on day one after reopening? It must have been really emotional for everybody, for the customers, but also for the crew, probably.
Yeah, I think one of the most emotional and really greatest days in my career. We opened up the Disneyland park, at 8:00 in the morning, and people came streaming in, and we were there. We, from management to hourly cast member, we were lining the streets of Main Street, at the Disneyland park, waving, clapping, thanking people for coming back. And the most amazing part to me was that while we were thanking them, they were actually more enthusiastically thanking us for hanging in there and for finally reopening, because something was missing in their lives.
Yeah.
The happiness that the Disneyland experience brings to them was missing, and they were so grateful to us for bringing it back. I mean, they were crying, we were crying, everybody was hugging. I mean, it was a very, very special time, and one that I'll never forget. And I like telling that story because I can visualize, the people laughing and the tears and the hugs and the pictures, and everybody came in with cameras, and I mean, it was a really special day.
Walt Disney said once, I always like to look on the optimistic side of life, but I'm realistic enough to know that life is a complex matter. Do you relate? And what keeps you with Disney for such a long time?
Yeah, I find that maybe the most difficult question to answer. And I think there's simplistic ways to answer it, but I am like Walt Disney. I am an optimist. Um, um, Maybe so much so that I don't look at the pessimistic side, sometimes when maybe I need to. But I have a favorite character. His name is Buzz Lightyear.
I
And
know the guy.
Buzz, who always says, to infinity and beyond, I think exemplifies sort of my belief in what's possible, which is anything is possible. So my vision for the business is a vision of optimism and a vision of there's nothing we can't do, and a vision of even if it's hard and a challenge, we're so good at what we do. We have such fabulous leaders and people in the organization that there's nothing we can't accomplish. And that's a culture, that's been created here that I'm really proud of. It's a culture of, one, there's nothing we can't do. Two, we'll challenge the status quo. Three, even if we don't get it right at the beginning, we'll fix it because we're good at what we do, and we listen to the guest and we listen to the cast, and we'll make it right. And so, that sort of culture is what I thrive in, because there's no lack of ongoing challenges. There's a new challenge every day, and how we handle those challenges, I think, is the exciting part of the job, and the creative problem solving that goes with that, and the leadership and the inspiration, that goes with that, I think, is what keeps me motivated. Not every day, every hour of every day for me is different than the previous hour, and that's so exciting. And it's never boring. And I never get tired of, gosh, I'm doing the same old thing that I've always done, because I'm not. It literally changes, by the minute. And that ongoing challenge, I think, is what keeps me, one, I think it keeps me young. Two, it keeps me inspired. Three, it keeps me happy, and four, it keeps me happy where I am.
What about your professional goals? How different they are now than they were like before over years? How they changed over years?
Yeah, I don't think I ever would have envisioned, running the Disneyland park, which is an iconic asset, and really a symbolic asset, around the world. I don't think I ever would have dreamed of doing that. I think as I learned more about the company, and as I learned more about this very special place, this became fascinating to me. And to be able to protect the traditions and the iconic nature and the symbolism, but still have a vision for advancement and good change, became a really interesting balancing act. But one that I think, is really important here, because if you allow something to grow old and tired, it will ultimately shrivel up. Disneyland at 68 years old is vibrant and dynamic and relevant to not just the people that were here 60 years ago, but to the people that are here for the very first time. And I think that's a really special thing to be able to be part of.
What is your recipe for becoming successful? Successful in business, successful as a leader?
Yeah. I think there's a couple answers there. One, I have a fantastic family, and they have been extraordinarily supportive. I have a very independent wife who didn't necessarily need me, to be present all the time. Um, she needed me to be engaged, but she wasn't overly reliant on me. And the boys were very independent as well. And I'm proud that they, all kind of operate that way, because that gave me great latitude to be able to go to work when I needed to go to work, to travel when I needed to travel without feeling guilty. And so I do think that's a reason for my success, because I could invest in the business when I needed to. Simultaneously, I have enough balance in my life to be able to invest in them and relationships, because that's what supports me, and vice versa. So I think that's one of the solutions, which was that really supportive home life. I think the second part was this philosophy of I wasn't going to lock myself in to one path. He called it the vertical path. That I was going to believe in zigging and zagging, even if it wasn't always for a promotion or more money or those things, but it was always for a new experience, a new challenge. And my willingness to take on those new experiences and new challenges, I think, has been the reason for my success. Because again, as we talked about, I was able to build my brand, and build that experience base as we went forward. And I guess the last part is something that I attest to my parents, which is be kind. It's not that hard to be kind, and still, by the way, make a lot of money and make hard decisions and all that. But do it in a way where you're empathetic, where you're sensitive, where you exhibit kindness to people, that you care about their lives. We walk around the parks. I walk the parks 3-4 times a week, and I try to greet everyone, that on my team that's working in the parks. And by the way, like, I won't walk past a custodial person without thanking them for the great job that they're doing to keep the place clean, or the great job that a security person is to keep the place safe. These people are so unsung. They don't get, enormous fanfare and credit and things of that nature. But the fact that I walk up to them and they don't even know who I am many times, and just, pat them on the back and say, I've been watching for a couple minutes. You're doing a great job. Thank you. That lights them up. And again, even in a big company with 35,000 employees, your ability to touch all of them, whether you're talking to them one-on-one, or you're doing a town hall, or I'm doing an Instagram story, or any of that kind of stuff that speaks, about their importance and the kindness that we're trying to exhibit relative to their lives, relative to their families, relative to their benefits, relative to their development, all of those things. It doesn't go, unnoticed. And again, it's why so many of our cast members stay for a long time.
Do you have any regrets in your professional life? Any decisions, situations, conversations? Is there anything that you could call like a turning point in your career, something that you would have done differently?
I don't have a lot of regrets, and that's probably a really good thing to say. And I count myself as incredibly lucky not to have a lot of regrets. I think that I would have liked to have had an international assignment during my career. That would have been another one of those brand builders. I worked across all of our theme parks. I traveled a lot for our consumer products division. I got to explore the world, but I never got to work in a different environment, in a different culture. And I think that would have been a really exciting learning experience. That's maybe the only regret, that I have, because I don't regret the balance, that I was able to create with my family.
Mm-hmm.
and I have a wonderful family that are all doing incredibly well. I don't regret my career path. Um, could I have gone faster or further? I'm happy, so I don't worry about
Mm-hmm.
that stuff anymore. Um, and I don't, again, as that optimist, as that Buzz Lightyear personality, I don't look backwards.
Mm-hmm.
I look forward. So that's a hard question for me from a regret perspective. I think, the only other thing that I work really hard on, but it's never enough, is relationships and the ability and really the time to invest in deeper relationships,
Mm-hmm.
with people. So I have many friends, and I, want to spend more time with them.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you, like all of us, how do you balance that
Yeah.
with the challenges of work and all of that? But I try. You pick your spots,
Mm-hmm.
and you go from there.
I've recently heard what Simon Sinek said. He said that everything in life comes with a cost. And I would like to ask you, how would you define the cost of your career?
I think there's a couple. I think the probably the biggest cost is, the cost of not being able to have, these close relationships or these close contacts with people that I have deep
Mm-hmm.
relationships with. I grew up in a relatively small town, as well. And I still have a dozen friends
Mm-hmm.
that I stay in contact with, but I wish I could see them more frequently.
Mm-hmm.
And I could talk about the same with university friends and things of that nature. So that's the one cost. I think the other cost is wear and tear on me, because it is a continuous amount of pressure
Mm-hmm.
on your own personal body and psyche.
Yeah.
And I wish I was a little healthier. I wish I was a little thinner. I wish I had a little more time for exercise. But that's one of the costs, as well. And again, we all fight for balance,
Yes.
and balance is an everyday fight. And I'm trying really hard to strike the right balance, between, personal life, career life, family life, all of those kinds of things. You never get it perfectly. And by the way, even if you do get it perfectly for a moment in time, the moment changes and you're not perfect anymore. So,
Yeah.
those are the costs.
Yes. Yeah. I think you're right. We all are fighting for this balance. It's really not easy to achieve it. Do you feel professionally fulfilled at this point?
I'm getting asked that more and more lately, and I think the answer is yes, especially with the Disneyland role. I'm not sure I would have been prior to Disneyland, but more and more, the opportunity to lead this iconic business is truly special, and I don't take it for granted.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is the highlight of my career, the pinnacle of my career, I'm satisfied with that. Doesn't mean I'm not looking for more challenges and more opportunities, but I'm really proud of what I've accomplished,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm proud of who I get the opportunity to work with and what we get to do together. And so, no, I don't have a lot of regrets there. From a career perspective. But by the way, again, it's back to that brand conversation.
Yes.
Are there new opportunities that present themselves that continue to allow you to build? And I'll give you one example. So we have a program here called the Disney Accelerator.
Mm-hmm.
And it is us working with about a half a dozen startup companies every year
Mm-hmm.
that are typically startup in the tech sector. And we work with them to help them figure out what do they need to do to be successful and to get to the next level. And two, what are the applicable ways that their invention, their technology can be utilized within our company and in other industries around the world.
Mm-hmm.
I have found that to be incredibly exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole new area for me,
Mm-hmm.
and one that I have, jumped into with both feet.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm working with a number of these companies, and I love it. I love the energy and the hopefulness, and by the way, they're all broken. They're all broken. They don't know how broken they are. Um, but I find that my experience could be, helpful at times. So
Mm-hmm.
that's another example where I don't believe it ever ends.
Yeah. You mentioned your parents, and I would like to talk about your roots. Your parents are Polish immigrants. Your mom was born in Warsaw. And they were running a restaurant, so they were in the gastro business. It was hard work. And I wanted to ask, what comes from the childhood that shaped you to become the leader you are today?
Yeah, it's interesting. It when I got the first job here at Disney,
Mm-hmm.
they assigned an operations person to me to show me how it's done the Disney way.
Mm-hmm.
And that very first day, this woman who is, a 10-year operations expert walked me through the park, pointing out how we do it at Disney. And as we were walking through the park, there was a piece of trash on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
and I bent down and I picked up the trash and I threw it away in a garbage can. And she goes, "Oh, good, you've learned the Disney way that we do that." And I go, that may be the Disney way, but I didn't learn it here. I learned it from my mom and dad, who would never have walked by a piece of trash and would never have walked by a customer without greeting them, and would never have not asked an employee how their day was, how their family was,
Mm-hmm.
all of those kinds of things. And so if that's the Disney way, that's also the Potrock family way.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's, again, Monica, one of the reasons I'm still here, because it was such a good match,
Mm-hmm.
culturally,
Yeah.
that what my parents taught me was something that was important here as well, and I could sort of be consistent,
Mm-hmm.
with that. So I remember being a little boy in New York City, and the family had a bakery
Mm-hmm.
in an area called the Bronx, which is right next to Yankee Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And I was maybe 6 or 7 years old, and I was in the bakery putting the bakery boxes together, so that we could put pastries in and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I got paid a penny a box
Mm-hmm.
to put these boxes together. So at the age of 6, I was developing a work ethic.
Yeah.
And I was developing ambition for, gosh, I want to make $1 today. I'll do 100 boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think that lesson has stayed with me, because my family was enormously hardworking.
Mm-hmm.
And again, as an immigrant family with no college or university, background, they created a wonderful life for their 2 kids and sent us to the most prestigious, universities in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And they did that, based on their hard work and their what we call sweat equity. So I'm very grateful to my parents, and again, I try to infuse that same kind of work ethic into my own children today.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's harder because we have more,
Yes.
and it's maybe a little easier for them, but I think they're both working awfully hard to try to show that hard work is part of their DNA as well.
Mm-hmm. Which values matters to you if we speak about professional life, and are they similar to the personal values?
Yeah, again, we talk a lot here in the house about kindness.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about community service.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about recognizing that there are many people that maybe don't have what we have,
Mm-hmm.
and that we should be respectful of that and supportive
Mm-hmm.
of that. And so, interestingly, so many different examples here. My son is applying to transfer to a new university here in California,
Mm-hmm.
and he's working on his application, and he's talking about all of his community service. and it's enormous. It's truly enormous, and I'm really proud of that. And it's not because I'm making him do it. It's because he likes the feeling he gets from providing service. Another example, my wife just went to work for the Los Angeles Police Department.
Oh.
Now, my wife's an actress, but she is volunteering with the LAPD because she believes it can help the community in really, really powerful ways. So I think those are really important examples where service and service to others, is a big part of what we're all about. And so I think that value comes into play at home and at work.
Yeah.
Kindness again becomes part of that, and hard work becomes part of that.
I would like to talk a little about your style of management. How would you describe it? How do you lead people? What's your secret sauce in motivating them to work with you, for you?
Well, number one, we talked about being an optimist. I believe in optimism. Number two, in all the businesses that I've had the opportunity to run, it began with creating a vision for what the business could be. Not what it was, and not, hey, can we make 10% more money? It was, what is the vision for what this business can be? And then it was talking to people, convincing people, motivating people to follow that vision. And people, from a leadership style, you could put it on a memo and they may or may not follow. But if you're out front, if you've rolled your sleeves up, if you're working with them to make this vision come true, if you get, I call it get dirty, then all of a sudden they go, well, if he's willing to do it, maybe I'll be willing to do it too. And I believe that's, the kind of leadership that I try to exhibit, which is upfront, engaged, willing to make the investment kind of leadership. And by the way, I don't shy away from risk. I believe, that we should be taking risks. Now, again, I want to be thoughtful about that, but I'll never, ever fault somebody for taking a thoughtful risk, even if it doesn't work out. Never. And that's, again, creating a culture that says that it's okay. And if you're not failing sometimes, you're not trying hard enough. And so, again, all of these things are about creating the culture that we want. And again, I think the leadership style that I bring to the table is a culture that says there's nothing we can't do together. And we're going to go figure it out because we're good at what we do. And we'll do it in a collaborative and unified way. And then we're unstoppable. And again, coming out of the pandemic was a great example of that. Launching this 100-year celebration is a great example of that. Pushing hard to have new rides, new attractions, new experiences. We have to compete internally within the company for that capital. And we have to make a case that says you're better off spending $1 here at Disneyland than anywhere else in the company. And I think we've been able to show that we're worth that kind of investment, which is why, again, we keep growing and we keep being dynamic, and it's a wonderful cycle that we're on, and I don't believe we're going to get off.
We learn mostly through experience. We learn from failures. The most inspiring leaders, mentors in your professional life, from whom you learned the most? We there's so many different leaders that I've had, and so many different mentors and examples. So, we have a new leader now, a new old leader. His name is Bob Iger. He retired a little over a year ago, and then through circumstances came back to the company. I really value him because his calm, his can-do attitude, his ability to
have and build relationships to get to good solutions,
Mhm.
Is settling in a troubled time. And it's really interesting to watch him because he's a master
Mhm.
at managing through these things and making everybody feel like there's a leader here that will navigate us through that.
Mhm.
So I watch him a lot, and I learned sort of under crisis how to manage things. I have another leader. Her name is Meg Crofton,
Mhm.
who taught me really the value of kindness.
Mhm.
Now, I always thought I was a good person and kind, but she is the kindest person and really the person that's willing to invest
Mhm.
her time in cast members and people in relationships, and not just to get more out of them from a business perspective,
Yep.
but for them to have happy lives.
Mhm.
And she's been a guiding force for me as well.
Mhm.
And I have a third leader. His name is Al Weiss, who taught me to be open to the opportunities that were going to ultimately come my way,
Mhm.
even if I didn't see them coming,
Mhm.
and to be adaptable and resilient and open-minded.
Mhm.
And so, those are three examples of people that I've worked with that again brought me different lessons.
Yeah.
Um, but the compounding effect
Mhm.
of those lessons has made me stronger and quite honestly a big part of who I am.
What are the dark sides of leadership? What's the hardest about being a leader?
Well, we went through the highs and lows here with this pandemic.
Mm.
Um, the dark side of leadership was needing to lay off or furlough 33,000 people.
Yeah.
I don't think I could have had a more disheartening responsibility than doing that to people. And we tried to do it in the kindest way possible. We tried to do it in a way that was as supportive as we could possibly be. But we were a company, that was worried about survival,
Yeah.
of the company. And that was heartbreaking to me. And it was heartbreaking to talk to cast members and employees that, were really worried about how they were going to be able to pay their rent,
Mm.
or how they were going to be able to, put food on the table. I would drive around Anaheim and there was no one on the street,
Mm.
and fences and barbed wire was put up around all the businesses.
Yeah.
And literally even, you know, uh, 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 I don't know if you're familiar with the term tumbleweeds.
Mhm.
Tumbleweeds, these big balls of sticks
Mhm.
roll across the street like
Mhm.
we were in an old Western.
Yeah.
Uh, the streets were empty and there was nothing there. This place was dismal.
Mhm.
And I came home, or I was home, and I dreamed about it. I couldn't sleep
Mm.
because of it. I was heartbroken
Mm.
by it. And again, we worked tirelessly
Mhm.
to get reopened, and we worked tirelessly to support our cast members and our community,
Mhm.
which is what made it so sweet when you come out the other side and begin to bring people back and begin to see businesses reopening and begin to see smiles on people's faces because they're enjoying Disney. But boy, the
Yeah.
highs and lows of
Yeah.
the last couple of years have been shocking.
Yeah. Well, we are living in a difficult times, and there were like a few black swans. One of them was pandemic. Now we are talking about global crisis. We are also facing the war in Ukraine, in Europe. Well, that makes the business situation more demanding. What should be the leader's biggest concern nowadays, and what should be their biggest focus?
Well, I think we all have to be knowledgeable
Mm.
and sensitive about what's happening in the world. We live in a global economy now, not an isolated economy. And we have to be cognizant about what that means, whether it's immigration, and again, I'm a first generation American here, and I understand, the role that immigrants play, whether it's people that are struggling in war-torn, areas of the world, I think our responsibility is to be knowledgeable. And our responsibility, as knowledgeable citizens is to reflect that we want to do the right thing. And so, whether you're doing it with a vote or you're doing it by campaigning for a particular leader, that believes in, empathy, sensitivity, service to others, that becomes part of it. I think simultaneously we see it here, with people that are struggling, not just economically, but in Southern California we have a big Hispanic, Latinx population base, and so many people from Mexico and Venezuela and a variety of other places are trying to get into the United States. And by the way, many of them have family here. And how do they, think about that? And you can imagine the worry that they have for their family members. And then last but not least, way too frequently we see crises like school shootings or shootings at, events that are not just dangerous, but demoralizing, and sort of cast the shadow over, the happy lives that we all want to live. And so I think the answer at the end of the day is be knowledgeable, be sensitive, and be supportive. Can't do enough ever, but do your share. And I see it with my cast members, that are, volunteering, that are, working at food banks, that are working at hospitals where, so many young people are affected by depression and anxiety, things of that nature. Getting a better education so you can better your life. I think we do what we can do. I don't accept doing nothing. And that would be my sort of plea to all, which is there's more that we can do. Try to do a little more. And if you're not doing anything, you're not pulling your weight.
Thank you, Ken. It was really inspiring conversation. Thank you for this opportunity to meet you and to talk about your idea of leadership and your experiences.
It's been my pleasure, and hopefully our paths will cross sometime soon in person, or I'll be making another trip to Warsaw, hopefully sometime in the near future, to show my family where their roots are.
Oh, that would be great. You are very, very much welcome. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Top Leaders Club podcast. If you are eager to learn more, visit monikacieśelska.com or subscribe to Top Leaders Club on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, and other platforms.